Hello, I'm Dr. Terry Wolfer, a professor in the College of Social Work at the University of South Carolina and currently Associate Dean for Curriculum. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Melissa Reitmeier, to talk to you about a new book we've got coming out soon.
Hi, my name is Melissa Reitmeier. I'm the Director of Field Education here at the University of South Carolina College of Social Work, and I also am in the role of Clinical Assistant Professor. And we're excited to talk to you about a great book out to help you train your field educators in your program.
This book is a collection of cases. That's not so unusual in social work. We've been doing, social work educators have been using cases for a long time. This collection, though, differs in a really significant way. Most social work educators use cases as illustration or as examples, maybe good examples as in exemplars, to show students or learners how something works, how a theory applies, what to do in a situation. And so there's a lot of showing and telling, that sort of thing. In contrast, these cases are decision cases. So they're all based on interviews with actual practitioners about specific concrete situations, and they tell the story about that incident up to a point of decision. There's a cliffhanger and the case ends, leaving readers wondering, like, what happens now? Like, what did they do? What's the problem? Yeah, and so these cases, in contrast to traditional cases, don't show things so much as provoke discussion, elicit debate and analysis, get people, kind of trouble people and get them thinking, grappling with issues, trying to solve problems and figure out how to respond better to situations.
That's actually what I really think is a value for these cases, is they do not give you a right answer. Instead, they provide an opportunity for you to problem solve and look at ethics in different levels of the case, in terms of what things you need to consider, what things you need to unpack before you move forward with an intervention or an action. One of the things we love to do as social workers, as counselors, as helpers, is we like to solve things, and a lot of times we like to solve them quickly. The great opportunity here in a decision case is it gives you a chance to slowly unpack the issues that are relevant and give you a chance to think through these different layers that are contributing to a root problem. These are field education cases that can be used with your field team, can be used with liaisons. I also use them in field seminar with students. And even if the student isn't the formal protagonist in the case, it does give them an opportunity to look at field issues from a different lens, but also in considering all the core players that go into a field practicum experience. And so it really does become rich discussion and field seminar class to use these cases.
One of the things we found is that people enjoy talking about these cases because they can bring their experience to bear. It's not like being told stuff in a training session, but you're actually grappling with issues. Case discussions often resemble vigorous team meetings, case conferences and that sort of thing, where you're trying to sort out the issues and figure out what's going on. And practitioners, especially experienced practitioners, enjoy that. Kind of mixing it up with their colleagues, trying to sort things out.
There are a lot of different ways that the cases can be used. They can be used for training of field educators, which could include field coordinators, field liaisons, field instructors, task supervisors. You can use them with your team. You also can use them in students, but you also could use them in trainings. You could use them in class.
You might be wondering how you would use these cases. I think when people hear us talking about how these cases are different from traditional cases, they might not be sure what to do with them. And so I think it's helpful for people to know that along with this case collection, we've developed a set of teaching notes. The teaching notes are actually often longer than the cases themselves. These cases, because they're written as kind of short stories, open-ended short stories, they don't include analysis. They don't explain what's going on. It's just kind of raw data that requires discussants and learners to kind of make sense of it, to draw their own conclusions. But we put a lot of that analysis in the teaching note. So that would help an instructor, a field director, whoever's going to use this case. They can kind of a Cliff's Notes to kind of like what else going on in this case. They can read that teaching note. The teaching notes also include a whole set of questions, discussion questions, and you could actually ask them in roughly that order to lead a thorough case discussion. So that resource, I think, will reassure a lot of people, whether they've got experience teaching with decision cases or none. Those teaching notes will help them kind of get their feet wet, kind of know what to do and where to go with these materials.
I agree. I think the teaching notes are very beneficial too in terms of learning outcomes. Even though the teaching notes are not exhausted in the opportunity of what students may learn, whether that student is a field educator, a liaison, an instructor, or a student in the class, it's not limited to just the learning outcomes that are provided in the teaching note. There are actually additional learning objectives that you could potentially develop depending on how you want to move the case through the Socratic method. I wanted to personally just say what I really love about decision cases in general, and that is I really think it pushes the reflective practitioner in students and the learner. One of my particular areas of interest is judgment and the separation of bias and judgment from fact. And I find that decision cases really force the participant to really be able to be certain about what is fact and what is opinion. What is my opinion? What filter am I putting on top of this because of my experience, maybe my bias, maybe my prejudice? And students are really forced to kind of grapple with that and unpack it. A lot of times I've had the opportunity to have 12 years of leading case method discussion as what we call a capstone instructor here at the University of South Carolina. And one of the things I love to see come alive in the discussion of the cases is when students have epiphanies about, well, this really wasn't in the case. This is, why am I putting this on this? This isn't really what happened in the case. Why am I remembering it? And they become more in tune with the way that they think. They're better at double checking their assumptions and seeing that bias doesn't impact their clinical judgment. And so I do think that one of the biggest benefits of case method is that it fosters that clinical judgment. Whether it's a student, whether it's a practitioner, whether it's a field instructor, it really helps them to understand that on a level that you can't get from any other type of pedagogy.
Mm-hmm. Melissa, you reminded me of something else too, and that is that participants like field instructors, whether they're really seasoned and highly experienced or complete novices, they can both participate in these discussions. Because the really seasoned instructors have been around the block a couple times and they will understand these issues and have ideas about how to solve them and so on, and they bring their experience and expertise to bear to the discussion.
Yes.
But they're often challenged by some of the novices, maybe a little closer. These new instructors are often closer to the student experience, and they bring a perspective, maybe as young adults, maybe newer people to the profession. They have kind of a fresh perspective. And so in the discussions we find that those people all across the continuum are both learning and teaching and benefiting from the discussion.
Yeah, it's a very collaborative process that really does turn into a very rich discussion about really the process of arriving at a decision that's going to maintain the respect and integrity of everybody involved in that situation. It's a very thoughtful process that happens as a result of using decision cases.
I would suggest people who might be considering this case collection, field directors, for example, might be considering using this, but a little uncertain, not sure they know enough about it. I would suggest they kind of jump in. The water's not too cold. Jump in, take a chance with it. As we often tell our students, trust the process.
Yes.
Have your people read these cases in advance. Use the teaching notes to ask the questions. Stick pretty close to the script if you're uncomfortable, and see what it goes. See where it goes. I think, as we say, kind of trust the process. I think you will enjoy it, benefit from it. I think your field instructors will appreciate it and learn things from it. So we challenge you to mix it up with some of these cases.
Yes, we think you'll enjoy it, and I know that many of you have been looking forward to this since, we have been working on this for a couple of years, and we've actually piloted several of these tests in our case method conference that we have biannually in the summer.
Right. A few of you have encountered us at CSWE and some other places and heard, so you've already heard some of these cases. But now we've got a full collection, including a pandemic case even. We thought we needed a little cherry on top with something from the pandemic before we wrapped it up.
We're very excited to, extend this to our community. I really do think that they are beneficial cases to use in a lot of different settings as a field director myself for over 8 years.
Well, Melissa, we've been working on this collection for a few years.
Yes.
I know some of our colleagues have been waiting on it to be published. Now we're finally done. And I hope that they and others of our colleagues will enjoy this collection of cases and find it useful for training field educators and maybe in some other uses as well, but especially for educating field educators about how to do their job well. Sometimes we say discussing decision cases helps you think like a practitioner. In this case, it would be learn to think like an experienced field educator.
Field educator, that's right, and that would be field instructors, task supervisors, liaisons, and then I use them in our field seminar classes. And I think that if you teach practicum, you teach field seminar, it would probably be a great addition to your seminar class. If you have any questions or want to know anything more about the book, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to discuss it. This has been a labor of love. We have really enjoyed putting this collection together. I personally use them in our field seminar classes and how we train our field instructors, our task supervisors, our liaisons, and our field team, and have found these cases to be exceptionally beneficial to making sure our students are successful in field and that our field instructors are feeling confident and successful in their role.